Welcome, Kentucky Realtors. So glad to have you all on the call today. This is our third town hall meeting, and we're excited today. Just by way of background, KYR identified about 1,400 brokers throughout the state who are designated brokers, and we thought this would be a good time for us to just get together as a group of principal brokers, managing brokers, and those who lead offices, and just talk about best practices, what's going on, what the observations are. We've got 10 panelists today, as well as Dr. Lawrence Yoon, who is the head economist for the National Association of Realtors, and he will be giving us his take on the market here in just a few minutes. But wanted to start off by, first of all, thanking our panelists for being here. And I thought what I would do is I'm just going to kind of do a little roll call. And as I call your name, if you would just say your name and your position with your company, and then we'll get started after that. So I first want to start with our president, Mr. Lester Sanders, to kind of get us kicked off here. Lester? Not sure if he is on yet.
Sure.
Okay.
There you are.
Like the leaders that we are. And I pray that you, your families, and friends are doing well during these incredibly difficult times. Please take care of yourself and those around you. Oliver Wendell Holmes said, "A mind stretched by a new experience can never go back to its old dimensions." And this quote may not have ever been any more appropriate than it is for us today. It is a great prelude into this Broker Tele-summit. Today, our advisory group asks that you discuss the now, where you are now, the future, and the bridge back to the normal. And brokers, thank you for getting the word out to your realtors countless times to make sure that they too are doing their part to flatten the curve, to save lives, and to keep real estate as an essential business. To hear the governor recognize realtors and say that he's not had any reports on realtors not doing their part is important to us. Yes, leadership and staff, we're doing our part to get the word out. But you, the brokers, have been and you are essential to our overall success. So thank you for your leadership and commitment. We have a diverse panel of brokers that Lamont has talked about. And I'm going to give you a little bit of background on those if I can, because it's important to know that we chose large and small groups across the country intentionally. So Al Blevin is with us. He's an NAR director, immediate past president of LBAR. Al has about 15 agents at Caswell Pruitt in Mount Sterling. Then we have Brad DeVries, CEO of Home Services of America, who represents Simmons Realtors, Wakefield Reitlinger in Louisville, and Rector Hayden in Lexington, as well as Huff in Northern Kentucky. Brad's a past president of Greater Louisville Association of Realtors, and he represents about 1,000 or 1,100 realtors across the state. Dave Parks, senior vice president, Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Parks in Whitesburg and Louisville, is past president of GLAR and a member of the KYR Board of Directors, and Dave responsible for locally about 90 different realtors. Then we go to Joe Hayden. Joe is a broker owner of RE/MAX Properties East and here in Louisville, and a past commissioner for the Real Estate Commission with about 127 agents that he represents. John Burns, principal broker owner of Century 21 Partners in Owensboro. John manages approximately 20 realtors. And then from there, Kim Sickles with Sickles Incorporated Realty in Louisville. And Kim is a past commissioner and actually chaired the Real Estate Commission. She has 4 in her office. And Kim Whalen is managing broker with Star One Realtors in Northern Kentucky and a member of this presidential appointed group responsible for about 26. Then we move over to Rip Phillips, a managing broker for EXP Realty across the state of Kentucky, representing and looking after about 250 agents. And from there, Ron Hughes is a broker owner in far west Kentucky with RE/MAX Realty Group, and is past president of Kentucky Realtors from Paducah. Tommy Black, we go back to Eastern Kentucky, as a broker and owner of REMAX on Main in Corbin, where he manages approximately 8 realtors. And so first, we'll hear from the esteemed expert on housing and economics, Dr. Lawrence Young, and the person that people around the world lean in to hear when he speaks, the Chief Economist and Senior Vice President of Research for your 1.5 million member trade association, the National Association of Realtors. That's Dr. Lawrence Young. And now I turn it back over to our moderator and chairman of the President Advisory Group, past president of KYR and NAR director, as well as the owner and broker for the Breland Group, Lamont Breland.
Thank you, Mr. President. Appreciate that. And just by way of, just so everyone can kind of put a face to a name, just quickly as I call your name for our panelists, if you would just, again, just say your name and anything you might want to add, but just your, the company you're with and your role there. I'll start off with Dave Parks.
Dave Parks, my sister Judy and I own Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Parks and Weisberg in Louisville, and Partners Realty down in Bowling Green in conjunction with James Cook, and we're just glad to be here on the call.
Thank you, Dave. Joe Hayden.
Joe Hayden, a principal broker and owner of REMAX Properties East. Excited to hear what everyone has to say today. It's obviously a very challenging time, and it's the perfect time for all of us to be getting together to share.
Thank you, Joe. Kim Sickles. Kim, are you there?
Kim, you're muted.
Sorry. So Kim Sickles, my husband Ron and I own Sickles Inc. Realty. I've been licensed since 1995, and Ron is the principal broker, and he's been licensed since 1978. Glad to be here.
Kim. Thanks for being here. Kim Whalen.
I'm Kim Whalen, and I am the principal broker for the Kentucky office of Star One Realtors, and I'm happy to be among all of you and here today. Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. John Burns.
Hi, I'm happy to be part of this panel today. I thank you for the invitation. My wife and I own Century 21 Partners in Owensboro, and I'm the principal broker.
Thank you, John. Tommy Black.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Tommy Black. I am the principal broker and owner of REMAX on Main, Corbin, Kentucky, and really happy to be here with you guys. Appreciate the opportunity to be on the panel, and really look forward to some great conversations and moving forward.
Thank you, Tommy. Brad DeVries.
Hey, Lamont, thanks for having me. Again, my name is Brad DeVries. I'm the president and CEO of Huff Realty up in Northern Kentucky and Rector Hayden Realtors in Central Kentucky, and then both Seminole and WR Realtors in Greater Louisville. And we're all a part of Home Services of America. It's an honor to be here. Thanks.
Thanks, Brad. Ron Hughes. Ron, are you there? And then check your mute if not. I'm going to come back to Ron. Al Blevins.
Okay, I'm back.
There he is.
Hey, sorry about that.
It's all right.
Thank you, Lamont, for asking me to be a part. Looking forward to this. I am the owner and a broker, not the principal broker, but of REMAX Realty Group down in Paducah, Kentucky.
Great. Thanks, Ron. You may want to open up your video if you want to. Al Blevins.
Lamont, thank you for having me on this panel. It's been a pleasure serving with you and all the others. I'm the managing broker and of Casualport Realty and partner. We have an auction company as well, and I'm looking forward to hearing what Dr. Yoon and everyone has to say and whatever I can contribute. Thank you.
Thanks, Al. Now, immediate past president, Rip Phillips.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for having us here today. I am the managing broker for eXp Realty in Kentucky. We're publicly owned. We have realtors all across the state of Kentucky. Thank you.
Thank you, Rip, and thank you again to all our panelists. And now I'm going to throw it back to President Sanders to kind of hand it off to Dr. Yoon. Lester?
Again, I just simply want to say that we're honored to have Dr. Lawrence Young with us. And I was talking to our CEO, Steve Stevens, and we were having a conversation about this meeting here in particular. And Steve had just been on another conversation with Lawrence. And he said, well, Lester, what about this? And without hesitation, I said, yes, we're excited. Please, let's see if we can get Lawrence to spend time with our brokers, because many of our brokers don't get a chance to talk to or to see or hear Lawrence. And so we're just excited to have, again, like I said before, the person that when he speaks housing or economics and the impact, people really lean in to hear what Dr. Young says.
Thank you, President Sanders. I had met Lester, I think a few months ago in Louisville during the Kentucky Association, or maybe it was a Louisville Association Realtors meeting. And the forecast that I gave at that time was to say housing market was very strong. The momentum looked strong. There is a sizable pent-up demand. Look for increased business opportunity. But of course, all that forecast is now thrown away because we have a government-imposed economic lockdown. And with this situation, certainly a very tough environment for agents and of course, brokers. From NAR's perspective on the advocacy front, we want to make sure that this government-imposed lockdown does not harm the entrepreneurs, the hardworking Americans, no fault of their own, where economy just completely shut down, hit the wall. And hence, if you're talking to your agents, make sure that they ask for the unemployment insurance. Now, of course, people want business opportunity rather than unemployment insurance, but want us to look at the reality where things are shut down. And in the interim, we wanted to assure that independent contractors can tap into it. At the minimum, it should be $600 because that's what the federal government is providing. At the state level, there will be some add-ons to it. So it could be, even up to $800, $900 per week to at least buy some time until economy reopens. And small business loans, I know some of you may have been able to tap into it, but most were unable because of the bureaucracy, delays in returning phone calls and so forth. So another measure will be passed very soon this week, but we think the money could quickly also run out. So we just trying to constantly share our real estate information with the White House, Treasury, the members of Congress to say, here's what's going on in real estate. And please understand, again, economy was doing well. Real estate was extremely healthy before we suddenly hit a wall from this pandemic and government-imposed economic shutdown. Let me try to share a slide. So I'm going to press a couple of buttons to get the slide up and see, and put it on the right mode. Okay, so I hope you can see the slide. It's very briefly, and I will not be too lengthy because I actually want to hear from the broker panelists about what they are seeing on the field as well. So the economy was, again, quite strong. 2019, just modest slowdown last year. 2020 looked to be good before I put the big adjective ugly in 2020. We don't know how everything will play out. It depends upon the path of the virus, how it moves, whether a vaccine is discovered soon or whether some measures are taken. Just a couple of examples, Greece, total lockdown, but they don't have the coronavirus explosion. They have contained it in Greece, but it was through total lockdown. South Korea, they are allowing people to go to restaurants, the people are taking the train, and it appears that they have taken the pandemic situation to very manageable levels. No growth in the coronavirus because they are doing massive contact tracing. 90% of the people with virus know exactly how they got it. So as soon as person has it, it's immediately contacted the person nearby to say, please stay in your home for 14 days. But other people can go out onto the public, mask on, gloves, just normal social distancing. And it appears not to be spreading at all with the normal social distancing measures. So let's hope that economy reopens. Of course, we have to put the safety as first priority. We don't want to have a repeat of Spanish flu 100 years ago when 30, 40 million people died globally from that flu situation. So, health safety first, but also let's see how we can get the economy back up and running. The job market in Kentucky was in a very good shape. So from 10 years ago, when we had the foreclosure crisis mess, job losses, and then steady job gain and record high in terms of the total job situation before the pandemic, a very good situation. And the hitting of the wall, the unemployment insurance filings, look at all those small dots. That was considered normal. So without the 4 recent data points in the state of Kentucky, this is for the nation, you see how low level that is, and sudden explosion in the people who are filing for unemployment insurance. Again, realtors, please utilize these resources at this time to at least give you some time to go until the economy reopens. And the let me see, this is the state of Kentucky. So you can see again, the numbers being exceptionally low pre-pandemic and then suddenly rising and rising. So I think in the last week, it looks like over 100,000 in the past week. For the past 3 weeks. I mean, these are just exceptionally high numbers of people who are filing it. Just in case the state of Kentucky system is not ready, what we are hearing is that everything will be made retroactive because once they have the system up and running, the independent contractors, self-employed people will be able to tap into it and just document so that you can get that retroactive payment, and certainly share that information with your agents. Home sales in the meantime was again in a healthy situation. So after 2008 and 2009, you see a steady increase. A little red arrow down was when mortgage rate had hit 5% about 18 months ago. For people in the business, all the brokers, you know that 5% mortgage rates are very healthy. But somehow consumers thought, oh, that is a little too high after being accustomed to 4%. Today's mortgage rate is 3.3%. Very, very favorable. So in terms of the mortgage rate environment, very good. There is some issue with non-conforming mortgages like jumbo mortgages not being available or 20% minimum down payment. But FHA, VA, as well as the Fannie and Freddie backed mortgages that should still be running fine at the moment. Maybe they raised the credit score a 1 notch up, but down payment, 3.5%, 5%, those are still available. Another thing to keep in mind is facts are facts. And the fact is, back in 08 and 09, it was terrible times. Foreclosures, sales plunging 30, 40%, home prices plunging 30, 40%. So some people ask me, especially from the media, whether we should anticipate a repeat of 2008, 2009. And the factual information are the following. Back then, we had that funny mortgage, subprime lending, people overstretching their budget. Today, we don't have that. People have to meet the underwriting criteria to get a mortgage. Second, home builders went wild back in 05, 06 that led to oversupply. Today, home builders have been underproducing for multiple years, which is the reason why there is not enough homes for sale, whether in Lexington, Louisville, Cincinnati suburbs, Northern Kentucky. You all been complaining consistently lack of inventory, and that was due to home builders underproducing for multiple years. So completely different situation. So people can make their prognosis, assumptions, and opinions about future, but still facts are facts, and the fact is we are completely different from 2008, 2009. So at least that part, we are fundamentally different. Inventory being low condition before the pandemic, and again, home builders not building enough. And the situation is during the pandemic, currently in mid-April, we have even fewer inventory because people are taking precaution to say, well, I don't want strangers visiting my home who may touch stuff. So people are delisting. But why are they delisting? They're saying, I want everything to be assured before I list again. So most of delisting appears to be just for a couple of months until economy reopens. From the buyer's perspective, with so few inventory, they're not excited. They want to see more inventory. Of course, people are unemployed that it cannot be in the market, but 70% of the jobs are in secure employment, and they are facing 3% mortgage rates, but they still want to see more inventory before getting back into the market. And also many Americans, they just want to be compliant with governor's orders. If governors say stay at home, they're going to stay at home and not enter the market. So economy reopens, expect some burst of sellers coming on, and with more inventory beginning to show, buyers will get excited with 3% mortgage rates. And hopefully, people who recently got laid off can find jobs. Certainly for realtors, they're back in business, so hopefully to a large degree, hopefully. But for others, we asked the question, who are filing for unemployment insurance? And if you believe once the economy reopens that there will be a demand for hair salon, demand for dental offices, demand for daycare centers, as school opens, say for the fall, or people go back to work needing. So if you think it needs to open, then some businesses will be 100% up and running right away. So people who have been unemployed, they're getting their full-time job back immediately. Other industry, it will take time. Car industries will take some time. Cruise industry or the airline industry, maybe multiple years of recovery. So some industry will not be fully back up and running, but there'll be other businesses quickly. So you saw those alarming unemployment insurance, but part of that is like, people doing like beauty salons. I mean, but those will quickly come down once the business begins to reopen. Federal Reserve is all in, which is the reason why mortgage rates are low. Back in 08 and 09, it took Federal Reserve almost 1 year to bring the interest rate down to zero, at least the Fed funds rate, which then impacts the mortgage rate. This time, the Federal Reserve did not wait for 12 months to play it out. They went all in all at once in mid-March, which is the reason why the mortgage rates should be at all-time low. Red line is the 10-year Treasury. Blue line is the 30-year fixed rate mortgage. Two moves in tandem, a very synchronized movement. One exception is actually currently. Based on the 10-year Treasury where it is currently, the mortgage rate should be about 2.7%, but it's actually 3.3%. So there is a possibility that mortgage rate may go down even more from already low levels. But one of the reasons why it may be a little elevated is because the refi demand is so high that some of the lenders are saying, we don't have staffing, and only way to prevent home buyers from getting in is to put that 3.3% mortgage rate rather than 2.7%. But there is a possibility of mortgage rate going down a little lower in about a month once refinance begins to dry off. But the non-conforming mortgages, jumbo and others, are not working, very difficult to obtain. And the reasoning is the mortgage forbearance. People who lost job, government is permitting, you can skip mortgages for a few months. It's not a free money. I mean, that a missed payment will be simply tacked on at the end of the life of the loan. So it's not a free money. If it's a balloon, they need to renegotiate. Balloons are very dangerous. Just say, stretch it out over the 30-year life of the loan. But in the process, mortgage servicers are not getting this mortgage payment, but yet they have to make property tax payments, homeowner insurance payments, and also get the revenue back to the mortgage investors. So the mortgage investors are running into cash crunch. And hence they are saying, well, we cannot send the money out for jumbo loans. We need to preserve cash. And hence that's why the jumbo market is not working. We are talking with the Treasury and others to say, help out on mortgage servicing. And if that can be helped out with either short-term loan and such, I think the jumbo market should be getting back to normal. But right now it's not functioning. Let's assume some bad case scenario of, say, prices declining. That is not my forecast, but let's say it was to be the case. Another difference now versus back in 2007-8 is there's a sizable equity homeowners maintain because home values have been rising, but mortgage balance has been remaining flat, which means that homeowners have sizable equity that even if there is a 5% price decline, it's not going to be detrimental to the housing market of somehow foreclosures exploding. Most homeowners have some equity so that if there's a price decline, they can absorb it. Some people are on the margin, of course, but there's far fewer people who could be underwater situation if there is a price decline because of the strong build up in equity over the years. Housing starts not there. So, this is, if anything, I would say once the economy reopens, home builders need to build more because there is a significant housing shortage for starter homes and mid-price. Upper end, there is inventory, but it's really the housing shortage on the mid-price and below. Whether it's, working jointly with the builders, talking to the governors, real estate makes up about 20% of the economy. So as the economy reopens, if the home building started, home sales to occur, that means lawn care business, moving truck business, all the secondary positive economic impact. So one way to get the local economy up and running a little faster is for the public official to recognize, don't put any hindrance, obstacle for real estate transactions. Get the real estate transaction going, is going to boost the local economy. And this is the housing starts, I guess, more recent years on a monthly basis. In March, it declined because of the pandemic, which means even fewer inventory. We had a housing shortage, and then due to the pandemic, even home builders held back. Here's a large number of numbers. I'm going to read off quickly, and I'm almost towards the end. Housing affordability is actually better now than in the year 2000, even though home prices are higher. First, incomes are higher, but the second line, low mortgage rate, those are exceptionally low. Then you look at the population. We have more people living in the country, more families, households, more jobs, at least through the pre-pandemic situation. Yet the very last line, home sales were a little light compared to year 2000, even though we had more people, more families, better affordable condition. So this is the source of the pent-up demand. So when I met with Lester back several months ago in Louisville, I said to the brokers, as you think about over the next 5 years, how should you plan your business over the next 5 years? Using this table, I indicated you should plan for improvement in business activity or at least dollar volume in 4 of the next 5 years. I never say 5 out of 5 because something unexpected could happen. Whether a Federal Reserve drastically raise interest rates or who knows, maybe, but I never imagined that it would be some virus coming out of China that is the reason why we have this case. So 2020, we are missing the spring buying season. Later in the year will be better, but it's hard to make up for the loss in the spring buying season. Therefore, likely there will be fewer home sales overall in 2020. But home prices will hold on, which means it's not like the disaster of 10 years ago with 30% collapse in sales, 30% collapse in prices. It's not going to be that. But this decline in sales is only because we pressed the pause button for 2 months, maybe 3 months. But once the economy reopens, it's not going to be 100% up and running, like again, cruise ship, airline businesses. Some sector will be up quickly, but because of that, overall 2020, the unit sales will be a little lower. Interesting survey we did recently with realtors who had buyer clients and also seller clients. And we asked realtors who had buyer clients, do you expect very low price because of pandemic and unemployment insurance and situation? Can the buyers get a deal now? And the realtors are indicating they don't expect lower prices, or if they do, only less than 5%. Very few are expecting any big price declines. So this is saying that buyers understood it was very hard to buy home back in January, February, most of 2019. And is it difficult to buy home now and or easy to buy, therefore offer big discount? And realtors are saying, no, you cannot anticipate very big discount. There's even fewer listings today. What about on the seller side? On the seller side, on the right side, they're saying there's no panic among their home sellers. They're saying either they are going to delist for a couple of months, and once they begin to list, they're gonna list at the price which was pretty much pre-pandemic. So there's no panic among home sellers. And of course, we don't have that oversupply nor do we have foreclosures coming in because of the mortgage forbearance period. And also people who are unemployed today, I think most will get their jobs back once the economy reopens. So no panic. This is implying steady home prices in 2020. Stimulus help for brokers, again, small business administration loan, tap into it. It's a loan, but mostly turns into grant if you follow certain criteria. You don't have to pay back the money. So you can easily turn into grants. And unemployment insurance, please talk to your agent, tap into it until the economy reopens. And also the mortgage forbearance, foreclosure freeze. All this is to say that economic shutdown is not the fault of entrepreneurs. It's the fault, I should not even use the word fault. It's a government imposed shutdown so that we can have a better health situation for the country and no massive number of people dying from this virus. How is the government funding this massive, massive stimulus? They are printing money. So that's the short answer without going into the complexity. If they're printing money, Econ 101 would say higher inflation later. And I think we may get little higher inflation later, 4, 5, 6 years from now, but nothing alarming, maybe 4 or 5% inflation from today's 1 or 2%. So if people are looking for inflation hedge, they will be looking at two things. One is gold. They want to buy gold as an inflation hedge. Second is tangible asset like real estate. So in future years, real estate could be something people want to desire as an inflation hedge. So that's a possibility part, because today massive stimulus is essentially being funded by printing of the money. And NAR is also providing something called Right Tools right now, like free educational courses or reduced price, telemed opportunity for people without health insurance. So just look into this, go to NAR website. So my forecast, GDP down this year. Upcoming GDP number for a second quarter, just second quarter, could be down 30% or 35%, something really ugly. But then it would be positive 20%, positive 25% in third or fourth quarter. So off the chart numbers, but the year as a whole is a negative job situation, home prices holding steady, unit sale down maybe 5 or 10%. But 2021, that pent-up demand will roll around, and I think that the sales will come back along with the prices. I think I have spoken way too much, but thank you for the opportunity to share. Kentucky was in a very good shape. Just need to get the economy open. People practicing the safety, social distancing, and let's hope that slowly and slowly we get back to normal. Thank you.
Thank you, Lawrence. We do have a couple of questions that have come in. One is, have you heard any evidence of home builders kind of revisiting their floor plans to accommodate folks that have been working from home, and maybe their employers will choose not to send them back to an office environment?
So related to the big changes, which is somewhat unknown, but I think people can say that Zoom possibility is permitting people to work at home more frequently for people who don't have to be on site, which means that people may reconsider suburbs or rural area as their possible new home destination. Maybe they were very fine with their houses before the pandemic, but with pandemic and more possibility of working at remote in the future, they may say the elbow room, I need to have a dedicated office space, or maybe the home gymnasium or something like this. So people may begin to say they want larger size home, but affordable, which is in more outlying areas. So we may see some changes in dynamics this way going into the future.
Good. So I will remind our members that on Thursday, we're going to have our third town hall, which will be third or fourth town hall, and it'll be focused just on commercial real estate. So we're going to have a panel of commercial real estate practitioners, lenders, appraisers, and so forth. So that'll be a good question that we'll ask them as well. One other question is, given that the jumbo loans have come to a standstill, how is that affecting larger homes? Anything that you've noticed? I guess it's hurt quite a bit.
Well, very good question, Lamont, because pre-pandemic, there was some bifurcation in the marketplace. Generally, affordable priced home, strong demand, multiple bid becoming very prevalent. But on the upper end, there was a plentiful supply. And first, that's always normal because upper end market is a unique property. You know, people who are on the top income bracket, you know, is also not very heavy in terms of the population group. So it's very unique. But it was also damaged due to the mortgage interest deduction limits along with the property tax deduction limits. So people could no longer fully deduct all of that used to be part of the real estate deduction. And hence the upper end market was somewhat softer. But now with the pandemic and with the jumbo loan and with the stock market crash, which are held principally by people in the upper income bracket, I think this is producing greater slowdown in the upper end market. So people who specialize on the upper end, I think it may take a little longer to recover.
Good. Al Blevins wants to know how your son's coronavirus tracking website's doing.
Oh, wow. So someone remember that my son, for his college project, he did this corona tracking device. It's on the website, and currently it has over 10, I think reaching 10 million views. So wow. I know on the television, they often mention Johns Hopkins apart, but if you look at my son's data, which is getting the data from the, you know, the CDC and all the original sources, his data is a little more up to date, but it's just his hobby and his project, and I think he got A on his course. But so thanks for mentioning that. But I also want to mention that, you know, he goes to University of Virginia, and the athletic director there is Dr. KYR Williams, one of the few female athletic director. And then University of Virginia, I mean, I missed the March Madness because of the pandemic, but I think everyone knows about UVA, #1 seed losing to the number 16 seed, and the next year winning the championship. So the athletic director, Dr. KYR Williams, said that adversity that she faced after the loss to the UMBC, how do you handle it? Do you go home and cry? Or do you say adversity is chance to see what type of mistake, what adjustment one needs to make for the better improvement the following year? So her attitude was always look at the adversity as an opportunity to adjust and better improve so that once you have next opportunity, you really tackle onto it. So one can view the real estate or even the whole economy today as a huge adversity, unexpected. But during this downtime, you know, people are getting educated. Maybe you are contacting clients. So how do we come out of this adversity so that we can serve the community better?
Great. One other question, will NAR be doing another pulse survey?
We are monitoring almost every week. Some weeks we just let it pass, but almost every week, just because market condition is changing. So the buyer traffic is down significantly, seller traffic is down significantly, and one can look at the hard data on MLS, listing is down, but all that is just saying that people are concerned with safety, and also they want, when everybody's back in the market, so they don't want to be the only one listing when others are not listing, but also at the same time for some serious buyers with less buyer competition, maybe this is the time to strike, because through social distancing, virtual tours, people can still do the transactions. So, you know, people are using it differently.
Very good. Well, thank you. So that's great. We hope you'll stay with us. And we've got I'll remind everybody, we do have our little chat section open. Please keep questions coming. No dumb questions. Nobody's an expert on this. We're all trying to figure out as we go. So thank you, Lawrence, for being here as always. You're awesome, and we just appreciate you so much. So now we're going to kind of segue into our broker panel, and as I said, we've got 10 brokers from around the state, and we really don't have prepackaged questions because I want everyone to kind of bring their own thoughts into this. So I'm not gonna call on any one person. I'm going to call on one person now, but just don't. I'll call on you if I have to. But we just want to have just kind of a conversational type of thing going on here. So if you have any questions, just try to keep your answers fairly short, just so we can get everybody in from here. So I'm going to start off just asking Brad DeVries He represents probably the largest group of agents on our panel. Just Brad, what are your what are your takeaways on a day-to-day basis? What are you seeing your agents? Where are they struggling? What are they doing? Where are their victories and that type of thing?
Yeah, thanks, Lamont. Well, I'll just give you my 2 cents worth, maybe 20,000 foot view. Generally speaking, we watch, when we look at closings, which is typically what's reported by NAR, when we look at closings, that's pretty much history. We've been watching our pendids like a hawk. I want to make sure I'm not on mute. We've been watching our pendings like a hawk and trying to make sure that, to try to understand what the tempo of the business was. And going through March, everything was great, but our pendids across the board in April up in Northern Kentucky were down about 25%, which is really pretty good compared to the rest of the country. In Lexington, we're down about 30%, and in the greater Louisville market, we're down about 35%. So blended, we're down about 35%, 33% across the board. That sounds rough. If anybody had to, for the folks that are having to take a 33% pay cut, it's no fun. It'd be no fun for anybody on this call or nobody inside of our marketplace. But it's pretty exciting to know that there's still 60-some-odd% of the business that we had last year that's still coming in the door, even though it looks like a ghost town out there. Our number one concern that we see and that we've got for our folks is just the health of our agents and our staff and their families. Number two, it's the ability for both categories, staff and agents, to be able to make enough money to be able to take care of all of the stuff that they've got at home. As it relates to our agents, which is the population we're primarily talking to here today, it's easy to look out on the highway and see no cars and see no activity and see empty parking lots and think that nobody wants to buy or sell houses. And then it's also easy to kind of drop back out of either anxiety, fear, or complacency and not stay top of mind with your customers. And so, that's my number one concern. And that's the gong that we beat every single day. We believe, based on all the things that Dr. Yun said, we believe that while spring is not going to be in the spring, we believe spring's coming in the fall. We believe there's a lot of pent up demand. We believe the activity is going to be really good the second half of the year, but we really believe that those who are going to benefit from that activity are those who are staying engaged now. Upbeat, positive, as a trusted advisor for their customers. And that's probably my number one business concern is that people are not staying engaged. If they will stay engaged and if they will be patient, I believe there's great benefit coming in the very near future, but it's the hard part, staying engaged. My last concern is just our the Commonwealth's economy, just the general economy. I don't want to go before it's too soon, but by the same token, we got a lot of people out there in the marketplace that need to get to work, and that could have a real strong effect on our business and on the housing industry over the next 6 to 8 months. So that's kind of it. I hope that helps.
That's great. Thanks, Brad. Any other follow-ups from our panel?
Hey, Lamont, again, want to say thank you and President Lester Sanders for the invite. I too agree with what Brad was saying. Our office is down about 20%. We have a price point of about 200,000 average price point of sale, and we specialize in first-time home buyers. One of the things we've noticed is a lot of our buyers work at the local factories, the GEs, the Fords, and some at the entry level in healthcare. And needless to say, those individuals have been either pushed back or not given a return date yet, which delays, not denies, but delays their ability to buy at this moment. So what we're doing is remaining confident, being optimistic with our clients. In addition, in February, we resumed first-time homebuyer awareness workshops. And out of that group, we've had about 40% since February that have either closed or within the next couple of weeks closing. So that has pushed us to maybe do some Zoom classes since we can't do the face-to-face classes. It's apparent that those are working, getting information to individuals. It's powerful. And I guess to conclude, we're thinking safety because we are still out there, and we have a care pack that we take with us. We got the little baggies that we take, and inside of our baggies, we have our disposable gloves. We have masks. We're taking hand sanitizer. Disinfectant. And we've got wipes that we're taking. You know, in the past, we've had, you know, the normal things in our toolbox, your flashlight and your lockbox and your bottle of water, but we've enhanced that. And one of the things you need to remember, once you put that mask on, once you put those gloves on, dispose of them properly. Don't try to keep them on and, you know, drive with your gloves on and could be contaminated gloves. So just be mindful of that. And I think it's important for us to be optimistic because the community, they're looking at us. They're looking to see if we're gonna run scared or not. So be safe and think safe.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah, it doesn't matter if you have all that equipment, if you don't know how to use it, it can kind of backfire on you. And I love that, having a positive attitude. Thanks, Kim. Anybody else from our panelists?
Yeah, I've got a comment and a question for the group.
Yes, sir.
It appears that what we're doing, based on what Dr. Young is saying and what the rest of us are saying, is that we are compressing this demand that's not going away into a smaller time frame. So when we open up the economy, open up the state and the country, that demand is going to be like a spring that we've compressed. And when we let it go, it's going to be, in my opinion, it's going to be quite overwhelming. The question is, will there be enough listings to accommodate the demand, and will the lack of listings contribute to more pocket listings, making it more difficult for our realtors and our associations to comply with NAR's one-day rule on having stuff in the MLS? I mean, it looks to me like it's just going to be strange and wild.
Good points, John. Dr. Yoon, do you have any thoughts on that?
So the pocket listing, you know, certainly that issue arose because of the inventory shortage. And right now we have, you know, even fewer inventory. And as we come out, there will be buyers coming back. Maybe not to the 100%, but some type of spring, you know, recoil spring beginning to pop out. So buyers come back. And if there is insufficient inventory, we may go back to that pocket listing issue again. Of course, NAR put a new policy in place. You know, that's not my specialty area, but if people are not cooperating, you know, it leads to, well, some unfairness, not only in terms of business opportunity, but from NAR legal perspective, it could even be very close to violation of the Fair Housing Act, as some people are not exposed to certain properties.
Good. All right, Kim Whalen, did you have a comment?
Oh, I was just going to agree with Kim. Kim's got to stick together. We're doing the same thing. We're offering like a toolbox for each of our agents with all the things you mentioned. We're talking to our agents about safety, and that's not going to automatically stop. You know, we're going to keep that procedure going. And I also agree with Brad. The challenges that we're seeing are just keeping everybody engaged without overwhelming them. We have so many education opportunities that are company-wide we're offering, and then we're having company meetings, and we're having, you know, my office meetings, and we're, you know, encouraging them to go to our town halls, and it can be too much, and they're missing the good stuff. So that's kind of been our challenge. You know, and to have a little fun with it too, because you can't sit in front of your computer every day, all day long, and it feels like that's what we're asking them to do. So we're trying to think of some social things to do as well. Keep everybody engaged.
Yeah, awesome. All right, anybody else on our panel?
I have a question.
Hey, Rick.
Hi, and this is for Dr. Yun. I mean, we're seeing deals falling apart now, not in great number, but a few, because people are being laid off. That means they're no longer able to get the loan. Now, going forward, once this pandemic is lifted, will people need to be back on the job for a period of months, or will this time period be forgiven when it comes to qualifying for a mortgage? Do you have any take on that?
So that very good feedback, and I will relay that to our advocacy team, because the spirit of the stimulus bill is that people should not be harmed from government mandated economic shutdown. So the credit scores is not supposed to be impacted at all. Or the credit bureau, whether they are skipping on mortgage payment by showing the economic hardship temporarily. So even if they missed out on mortgage payment, their credit scores are not supposed to be impacted at all. So you bring up very good point. So I'm going to relay to assure that if that was overlooked, because anytime you're trying to push a legislation in a very speedy fashion, one overlooks few things. And I'm going to relay that to assure that if we did overlook on that, that should not be the case, where people are laid off, not have income for a couple of months. Now they get their jobs back. I mean, that was just due to the pandemic and not due to the economic cycle or bad decision by the workers.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Joe Hayden, let me ask you a question. I know you and Brad touched on the safety of their agents and obviously their clients. And I know, Joe Hayden, you've researched this issue of using these addendums and for these COVID-19 addendums, even with regard to any potential liability against the agent or the client or so forth. Can you kind of expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, thanks, Lamont. And I actually would want to ask Steve Stevens or Lester if they know if Jason Vaughn's proposed addendum is going to be released. I had seen a draft version of it, if that's going to come out.
Steve or Lester?
Yes, yeah, it is out. In fact, if you'll go to the COVID-19 section of our website, which is like NAR's in some ways in terms of that we are constantly putting new things on it almost daily, there is a tab that says forms. And if you'll go to the forms tab, you'll see a couple of different items. There is that, there's a showing waiver that we put on there, and then the COVID-19, the document that you're referring to. And actually, we've even put very short videos on there that were done by our legal counsel, Jason Vaughn, that help people understand them a little bit better, Joe. But that's a good question. I want everybody to know that. As much as we think we've been telling people, there's people that don't know that. So that's good.
My specific question is, Jason did a COVID addendum that came out a week or two ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, that was that addressed contractual timelines and things like that. If there was a delay due to COVID, it would be handled the next way. I saw a draft, I thought just late last week, maybe it was on Thursday or Friday, that was more of a notice and approval to the parties for showings and things like that. Is that the addendum you're talking about, Steve?
Yes, I believe that's already on there. So.
That is on there as well. Okay, good. That I just didn't see it come out. The other one got pushed out by the associations and things, and that one from Thursday, Friday, I had not seen come out. It was still in draft. It didn't have your branding on it, et cetera. But I'll go look for that. One of the challenges that we face out in the field is that we've got, I'm up to 7 different versions of these forms that we have, and a lot of them and this is no offense, I know a lot of the attorneys are stepping up and trying to help, but a lot of them are title attorneys who are creating these hold harmless documents and waivers, when the types of documents they typically create are related to things that affect us typically in our license law, failure to disclose type items, misrepresentation type items. And when you're dealing with a medical issue, a virus that's never been tested in court or has never been addressed in any manner that gives us the kind of confidence we need to continue to be out in the field and work and have these documents signed. It's just something that I think is important, that we do the best we can to get aligned behind, a form or a document or a process. So if something does happen in terms of a lawsuit, an attorney can't take us to the cleaners and show 6 or 7 different versions of documents that might have holes in them, as opposed to 1 or 2 really well-written documents that help protect. But I know we're getting closer to the end of this process, but I'm figuring that lingering, especially in the state of Kentucky, for maybe as much as weeks or months past the beginning of the opening, is still going to be some type of restriction where we're going to probably continue when we're doing in-person showings and in-person closings, for example, or client consultations, listing appointments, et cetera, where we're still going to want to practice some elements of either the social distancing or the additional safety precautions related to hand sanitizing, et cetera, et cetera. And that would also potentially include some documentation. So that's just been something really important to me, is to pick a couple horses as much as we can statewide and not be so diversified with so many different types of agreements. And just in the field itself alone, it makes it difficult to, every time you do a showing, to have to sign a new agreement, instead of having a couple that you could sign and use over and over.
That's good. Anybody want to expand on that?
I will, Lamont. And Joe, thanks for bringing that up. But when this issue first came before us, we had several different forms, and I'm certain that you've seen many of them yourself. And so we got with Jason and say, Jason, we're getting an idea from here, we're getting an idea from Indiana, we're getting something from Ohio. We need something for the state of Kentucky. And so Jason spent some time. It may not be perfect, but Jason certainly spent time working and studying what was the best for us. And that's what you see posted on that site. So hopefully that helps us across the state in some form or fashion. And you're right, we don't know what's going to happen. We certainly know that there will be lawsuits for all kinds of things. But at this point in time, I think we're comfortable with what we got Jason to work out. And I think Jason posted about a week and a half ago, like Steve said, along with those videos. So thanks.
Well, one other thing to add, Lamont, I guess, is just I would just suggest that a really aggressive push from KYR with those forms and continue that to try to keep us all as much as possible into just a few forms, instead of, again, this massively diversified field that we're working out there. Like I said, we've got agents that, to do 6 showings, have to sign 6 separate different forms, and it's just becoming a burden out in the field with everyone doing different things.
Good. So another thing is, I'm sure most of you all have some type of policies in place that require your agents to go through some sort of safety protocols. Can anybody talk about that? Because, you know, with so many companies, I'm sure everybody's trying to do it the best that they can. I know we do have some things on the KYR Realtors COVID-19 website with just some kind of recommended protocols, but could anybody talk to maybe what they're doing within their company to ensure that their agents are doing the things that need to be done? As President Sanders said earlier, our governor stated last week that there have been no complaints or anything against realtors in the Commonwealth, and we want to keep that going. Anybody?
Lamont, one of the things that comes to mind with me is do as you see I do, you know, leadership. So if your agents see you doing it, using the precautions, I think they will follow suit. So that's important.
Good. Anybody else? If not, I'm going to ask Dave Parks, what's going on at your company, Dave?
Well, we're hanging in there. We've taken some pretty aggressive steps in terms of working remotely, like I'm sure everybody has, and we're really trying to minimize people inside the office. We have a few people who are health compromised. It's actually been a great time for us to get probably better at some things that we weren't doing as well as we should be. You know, I have an interesting, I don't know if it's a different perspective. I'd kind of like to hear some other people's perspective on this, but my perspective of what's going to happen, whether it's going to be 30 days from now, 45 days from now, or 60 days from now, is that I think there's going to be some long-term systemic behavioral changes. And one of them is I see us doing Zoom pre-calls with people before we ever put them in a car now. You know, we've had a policy for years that you've got to send us your driver's license if we don't know you. I see that happening. I see pre-listing appointments being done on Zoom calls. I also think that the point that Brad made earlier that, we're going to have a hole in the market, and all of us that have been doing this a while know you never get the hole filled back in because it takes time to get transactions done. But I do think that as we move into the fall, we could see some of it recaptured. But my concern is, I know anecdotally probably every bit of 50, 60, maybe 100 people that through our agents have houses sitting ready to go on the market. So one concern that I have that I'd like to hear others' perspectives on is, and even Dr. Yoon's perspective is, do we think there's a chance that if the market gets flooded in that 60-day window with an abundance of inventory that's been sitting held back, could we create a little bit of an overabundance of inventory? Because what I've been noticing is that it looks to me like listings are down about 17 to 20%, maybe as low as 25%, relative to where they were last year at the same time. But sales don't seem to be down quite as much. So that would tend to make me think that if the pent-up demand for sales is not quite as high as the pent-up supply, and then all of a sudden we flood the market, that could create a little bit of a hole. So I'm kind of planning to think that in addition to what little hole we've got right now, we could see June, July, and August be a little fuzzy too. And I'm just curious to see if anybody else is got that feeling in their gut.
Any thoughts? Don't be shy.
Dave, it's Brad. The only thing I would say about that is I do think that there's a chance that we're going to see a surge of listings, but maybe for another reason. I think there's going to be some people look to put their house on the market because they've determined based on the last couple months that they have to put their house on the market. People that took a hit financially, their business, they were laid off, whatever it was, economically, they got hit hard. And so I do think there's a chance that there's going to be a rush of inventory. I don't think it's going to be enough of a rush to truly mess up our year. I think that we might take a little bit of a sag in terms of pricing initially, but I think based on the demand, based on the metrics that Dr. Yoon pointed out earlier, I really and truly think that my gut tells me across the whole state and across the whole country, the demand is going to pick up and is going to pick up where it left off, and it's going to go surging through that. That's just my gut.
So Brad, you'd probably stay with that 5 to 10% total for the year spread, which really just represents 1 or 2 months anyway.
Yeah, if you ever follow any Ivy Zellman, she's super sharp. She, right out of the gate, she believed that we'd be, at the end of the year, we'd be down 10% compared to last year. And that prices could take a little bit of a hit, but that all in, they'd be up 3% at the end of the year. Who knows? We'll all know 7 months from now, 8 months from now. But I think it's going to be interesting for the next few months. I think the day that the governor says, we're going to start going back to work, and the day that he kind of puts a stake in the ground and says we're getting ready to go back to work and get back into the marketplace, I think our phones will start ringing. It'll be interesting. I also think we're going to see a little bit of a baby boom, and people are more productive when they're at home, and I think we'll see some folks that are real dissatisfied with their homes that are looking to get back in the market too, because the kitchen's not big enough and the family room's too small.
Other comments regarding that? So panel, what are you all asking or recommending your agents do with their free time in terms of prospecting? You can only clean the house so many times. You can only paint the living room. Now's a great time to get back to maybe the basics, but not the basics as we may have known them years ago. Any recommendations on what agents can be doing now to be ready for that boom if it happens? Anybody at all?
Lamont, I think it's good to, education is always powerful, and this is a great opportunity to take on some online classes. Get your CE if you haven't already maxed it out. Go ahead and get some additional CE.
Good. Anybody else?
Yeah, Brad, Lamont, I want to go back to something Brad said earlier, and I think this is the number one key is you've just got to stay engaged every day. Whether it's Zoom calls or it's still, I know there have been some people reluctant to write handwritten notes because they're worried about somebody not want to open up the envelope, so use a note card instead of a handwritten note. But I think Brad's point earlier about the person who's going to be leading coming out of this is going to be the person that stays engaged throughout it. So, you know, what we're just trying to do is get everybody to just stay engaged every day, keep making your calls, keep making your touches, you know, and it doesn't have to be, you know, it doesn't have to be anything about real estate. Just stay engaged. And if everybody does that, I think we'll come out of this just fine.
Good.
I think you just made the key point, and that is to keep in touch with people, regardless of whether you're talking to them about real estate or not. If you keep in touch with your sphere of influence and your friends and your neighbors, and just let them know that you care about them, I think that's going to make a big difference.
Good point. I think Steve is putting something up, but let me switch gears just a little bit here. Let's talk a little bit about unemployment, Kentucky unemployment. I've got, you know, we've got a lot of realtors that are proud, and as Dr. Yoon's slide showed, it's just unbelievable how many folks that have never filed before have filed. Any thoughts, takeaways, experiences with your folks filing for Kentucky unemployment?
Lamont, can you hear me?
Al? Yes, sir.
You know, we've been on several calls around the state and in different meetings here at the office and with LBAR. And so, you know, I hadn't applied for anything, keeping up on it, the PPP and the unemployment. So yesterday morning, I just wanted to see, I went online. It was very easy to fill out the unemployment applications online, and that came from Mr. Carter that we had on out of Louisville and some others. I got down to the end, I didn't push the button because I wanted it's very easy to do. But then I started looking, it would be more advantageous if I was going to do any of the two to do the PPP for myself. I talked to some other agents across the state that said they'd done both. I was wondering, how do you do both? Because you can't you know, take them both basically. But one lady, she's a realtor, she did unemployment and her husband did the PPP because of his business. So, you know, this whole meeting, I kind of coming from it from a different angle, I guess, and that's from the emotional side. And I think all of us have hit on it a little bit. And I came from a banking background years ago, and we always had the 4 C's of credit. So I worked on the 4 C's of Corona. And so you all have touched on them a little bit. And of course, the 4 C's of banking, credit was capacity and collateral and credit and capital. Well, my 4 C's for Corona are communication and education, which you all have already talked about. And, you know, first and foremost, we need to stay engaged, as you mentioned many times, with our clients, with their staff, and with their client staff and their community, basically. And then that's communication, education, and you know, what are the bankers doing? What are the staff doing? What do we need to encourage them? And then the second one, the C, was composure. Stay composed as a broker, because however we act and react to things, we're going to instill that in our agents. You know, we're leaders. I was very proud of Dr. Yoon a while ago talking about character, and it's revealed during adversity. And, you know, these are times that we're engaged in every community in the country, and we can take the lead as we have in so many other ways. And then the third C was confidence. You know, it's just important for us to be confident in what we're doing and to be mentally tough and prepared as we have been. And, you know, there's a lot of things that we don't have control over, but we certainly have control over that. And then the fourth one is just being considerate of others during this time. And, you know, many people are scared, not only about the virus, but about financial disaster to their financial statements and, you know, their family and friends that have compromised health. So, you know, we can protect each other. And one of my favorite quotes is from 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and it's seek first to understand and then be understood. And we can really use that during this time. We may not understand why people do what they do, but we certainly can be leaders in our community. You know, when I was in banking, when I first got out of college in 1980, the prime interest rate, as some of y'all remember, went to 21%. The first mortgage I made to somebody was 16.75, and the guy said, "Can I come back for another one?" My first mortgage was 11.5. I didn't think it'd ever go below that. So, you know, we've survived the recessions. We've survived a lot of things, and we certainly, I know with your all's attitudes and work ethic, we can survive this and make the best as realtors.
Good. So we're just about out of time. Any other thoughts on anything that we've talked about?
Lamont, may I just say real quickly that back to the questions about unemployment insurance and loans and all of that sort of thing, you know, there is going to be another bill that's going to be funding another round so people can access that. But one of the things, you know, back about 2 weeks ago, we had this large 400 and some odd town hall where we had a lot of NAR staff and state of Kentucky staff, and a ton of questions were generated on unemployment insurance, et cetera. And those were submitted to be, you know, answered. And we have gotten all of those answered, and they've all been written up. And we have 6 pages of frequently asked questions answered on the website now relative to unemployment insurance and all of that stuff. So again, another reason for you to go check that site out if you haven't already, because there's so much information on it that could help you, I think.
Good. And that's, Paul has put that up. It's KYRrealtors.com. You just click right in the middle, click on the COVID section. It'll take you right there. Bookmark that because it's being updated constantly. Any other? Yes, sir.
This is Charles Hinckley. I'm not on the panel, so I've been hesitant to say anything, but I have done the PPP program for my property management side of my business, as well as another business that I own. And I have already submitted my documents because they ran out of money for the independent contractor before I could get my stuff submitted. But I just talked to my banker again this morning that once this bill gets approved, assuming it gets approved, that I'll be submitted onto that as well. So whether unemployment works for you or PPP works for you, you want to weigh those 2 aspects out to see which one would be a better fit for some of your realtors. I just want to let people know it wasn't a very difficult process, and I'd be glad to help anybody that needs help.
Great. Ken Warden out of Northern Kentucky chatted here that his experience is most agents are receiving it. It's around $360 a week. So, you know, I think a lot of our agents kind of have a false sense of security because we're a little bit different. A lot of times the pipeline's full for 30 to 60 days. So, you know, in another 30 days or so, it may get a little tighter. So any other thoughts before we close?
Hey, Lamont, Tommy Black.
Hey, Tommy.
Hey, just, it's been hit on a couple of times, but I just want to put this in the forefront. Don't miss this opportunity to lead. This is a huge opportunity for you to step out in front of your agents and show what leadership's all about. Be the calming voice in the storm. And what you're doing now for them and what they're doing, giving them a vision and them buying in on your vision and what the end state looks like to you and how that adjusts going down the road, it may redefine what you look like 6 months, 8 months down the road. So it's a huge opportunity to lead your company, lead the people that's looking up to you. And I think that's important that everybody that's a good takeaway.
Absolutely. That's great. Thank you, Tommy. Anybody else? Okay, so just want to remind everybody about our commercial town hall. That'll be Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern, and we'll have a good panel there, and that's open to anybody, commercial, residential, resi-mercial, what have you. And if you have any thoughts on future town halls or things that we can be doing, we would appreciate it. With that, I'm going to turn it back to President Lester Sanders to close us down. Lester?
Thank you, Lamont. And thanks to everyone on this panel today for giving your time. You didn't have to do this, but you were willing to share for the greater good of an industry that's in need of us doing all that we can to make sure that our realtors are taken care of, again, their families are taken care of. So I just appreciate you being here. I appreciate just as well the KYR staff. They have been pushing out information. There are times that I'll get 6 emails, and I'm talking about back to back to back. I'm talking about yesterday in particular. But it's things that are going on, and it's important things that we're working on. to make sure that realtors are first, that realtors are taken care of. So we just certainly appreciate the time that you've given today. Dr. Young, if you're still here, thank you always, and special thanks, Lamont, but also to the PAC, to the Presidential Advisory Committee that's working on these things over and over and over again. So thank you so very much.
Thank you for your leadership, Lester. You're doing a great job. We appreciate you. And thank you to our panelists. And with that, see you later. Have a good day and stay
Be
safe.
safe, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you all.